Seanadóir Ó Donnghaile tá ceann ó méid agat agus a roiigh
Correct, me maigid a Carly agus Modin Moidiv, Minister. I wasn't sure that this would fall within your remit, but I'm glad to see you back, and I too congratulate you in your new ministerial appointment. Maybe you were hoping you'd get away from the issue of Brexit in the north for a wee bit, but a bit like the Corleones, you know. As soon as I think I'm out, they just pull me right back in. But here we are. It is. I do, Minister, appreciate you coming because it is an important issue. As we've talked about before, and you have outlined considerably, Brexit has caused a great deal of uncertainty across this island, Britain, and indeed throughout Europe. And I think it's fair to say that in the cut and thrust of that debate and those concerns being highlighted, probably one of the issues that have fallen below the surface has been the status of ethnic minorities and non-EU citizens who are resident in the north. As a result of Brexit now, the uncertainty around their status is particularly pronounced. And it does add extra pressure on the section of our society that is already vulnerable as a result of their status. So, Minister, really, what I was hoping to seek from yourself was an indication if, as part of the government's considerations and indeed their own negotiating stance going forward, if this important issue has been factored into those considerations. The ethnic minority community, a number of organisations have come together in the north. I have no doubt if you haven't seen it already, there is probably an outstanding request to meet you. They are representing a broad range of new communities and ethnic minorities seeking an amendment to the 2004 Irish Nationality and Citizenship Act. The reason for this, Minister, as you know very, very well, I appreciate I'm preaching to the choir. Obviously, under the terms of the Good Friday Agreement, it gives the right to people born on the island of Ireland to avail of Irish or British citizenship, or indeed both. For many of our ethnic minority communities, that isn't the case. So you're dealing with a situation where potentially you have ethnic minority communities and immigrants who are here from either EU and indeed probably more acutely non-EU states. They're resident in the north. Their children are born here. Their children qualify for Irish citizenship. They're rearing their families in communities where they identify the same as those around them as Irish, as New Irish. Their children are at Gaelscoileanna, they're playing for the local GAA club, and Brexit has obviously added a huge amount of concern and fear and uncertainty to them. So it's pronounced, as is with EU citizens who are living in the north and who wish to avail, because of their status, of Irish citizenship but can't. And then particularly some of the more established and older settled communities in the north, like the Chinese and Indian, Middle Eastern communities who have reared families, who have opened businesses and contributed to life there, who have helped in their own way to build the peace and reconciliation process, are deeply concerned now that, particularly those with children who are Irish citizens and have Irish passports, that their naturalisation, that's not a term that I like, but their naturalisation period only qualifies them, as I understand it, to apply for British citizenship and passports in the north. So I appreciate it's a bit of a hypothetical situation, and I'll finish on this, Catherine. It's a bit of a hypothetical situation. It's not exactly the most tangible at this stage. My understanding is the government could take the initiative to amend the Act. I think that would be hugely important, hugely symbolic, but hugely practically supportive to the ethnic minority communities in the north who are deeply, deeply concerned about their status as a result of Brexit.
Thank you, Catherine. I wish to thank Senator Ó Donnghaile for raising this matter, and gives me an opportunity to clarify the situation. The Irish Nationality Citizenship Act 1956, as amended, sets out the law governing Irish citizenship. The Act distinguishes between the entitlement to Irish citizenship by birth and descent and to the acquisition of Irish citizenship through the process of naturalisation. In relation to citizenship by means of birth, in the island of Ireland, the Act specifies certain residence requirements which must be met immediately preceding the birth of the child, where the child is born to non-nationals. Prior to the 1st of January 2005, every person born on the island of Ireland was entitled to be an Irish citizen, regardless of any lack of ties to Ireland. Following a referendum of the Irish people, the 27th Amendment to the Constitution changed the situation in relation to entitlement to Irish citizenship. As a result, the 1956 Act was amended by the Irish Nationality and Citizenship Act of 2004. The changes came into effect on the first day of January 2005. As and from that date, a child born in the island of Ireland to certain non-nationals is not entitled to be an Irish citizen unless that child's parents have been lawfully resident in the island of Ireland for a total of 3 years during the 4 years preceding the birth of the child. Periods of residence which are unlawful and for the sole purpose of having an application for refugee status determined, or for the purposes of study, are excluded from the determination of periods of reckonable residence. The position of foreign nationals, whether residing in the jurisdiction of the state or Northern Ireland, or indeed any other jurisdiction, is solely a matter for the authorities of the relevant jurisdiction, including where the foreign national may be a parent of an Irish citizen child. The sole fact of being the parent of an Irish citizen child does not bestow any entitlement to Irish citizenship to that parent. The grant of Irish citizenship through naturalisation is based on the individual satisfying the statutory conditions for naturalisation, which includes having the required lawful residence in the jurisdiction of this state. It is, however, open to parents of an Irish child to make an application for Irish citizenship through naturalisation if and when they fulfil the conditions for naturalisation as set out in the Act. The eligibility for a grant of Irish citizenship through naturalisation, as mentioned previously, is based on the individual having the required lawful residence in the jurisdiction of this state. Residency in the jurisdiction of Northern Ireland is not reckonable under the Act for the purposes of naturalisation, except in circumstances where the application is grounded upon being the spouse or civil partner of an Irish citizen. From a Brexit perspective, and indeed these are the circumstances under which Senator Donnghaile has raised this issue, I think it's important to be clear about its scope and indeed what is outside the scope of the Article 50 negotiations as they relate to residency or other rights. In this context, the negotiations are primarily concerned with the impacts on the European Union nationals in the UK, including Northern Ireland, and the corollary of UK nationals in the European Union. The specific strand of the negotiations is being prioritised for early consideration between the negotiating parties. This does not change, however, the right of persons born under the Good Friday Agreement in Northern Ireland. In other words, persons may apply for Irish citizenship in accordance with the legislative changes arising from the Good Friday Agreement. The question of citizenship, however, remains very much a national competency. Obviously, Ireland is maintaining very close contact with these negotiations, and I would be very happy to keep the House informed. And I very much acknowledge the point raised by Seanadóir Ó Donnghaile, and I acknowledge indeed his own, if I can describe it, as a specialist interest in this issue. I would be happy to keep the House fully informed, or indeed meet with the Seanadóir on any occasion that he feels it may be helpful to the points as raised.
A good offer for you, Senator, very briefly now.
Yeah, I welcome the offer, Minister, and I appreciate again that you're new into this post, and obviously you'll bring your own nuances and expertise as you move ahead. I do think this is an issue that merits looking at. I appreciate the complexities of it. I think we have an obligation to look at it, given that there are citizens in the north who very much identify as Irish, who have been living there for a long number of years and really want to engage and seek in a positive way to be part and parcel of the life of Ireland in its entirety. And perhaps not just in terms of meeting with myself, Minister, you'll maybe consider meeting representatives of that group who are campaigning on this issue as well. But I very much appreciate your response and appreciate your offer for the meeting.
Thank you, Minister.
Well, just let me say by way of conclusion, and On Seanadóir did say at the outset at Cathaoirleach that this is a hypothetical situation, that it doesn't have any effect as yet, and it's difficult to be precise as to the avenue down which we're proceeding on this. But let me say, again for clarification purposes, the position of third country nationals who may be residing in Northern Ireland, including those who may have a child or children born in Northern Ireland, they currently have no entitlement to Irish citizenship simply by virtue of their residing in Northern Ireland, nor have they any entitlement to unfettered free movement under the Common Travel Area. In effect, therefore, their position, as it relates to Irish citizenship, remains very much unchanged. And indeed, I repeat the point I make, that the grant of citizenship remains very much a national competency. And there are no current plans to amend the legislation. As the House is aware, it is our intention to maintain the existing arrangements with regard to the UK, and the government position is to protect the arrangements which have been long-standing under the Common Travel Arrangement and Common Travel Area, Ireland and the UK. We don't plan to change the current position. In advance of knowing, this is the point I think the Senator O'Donnell will very much accept, that we really need to know what the ultimate arrangements relating to the withdrawal of the UK from the European Union will be as far as the issue of citizenship is concerned. But let me say, should any issue arise during the course of the negotiations between the UK and the other EU member states, I would be happy to revisit the issue, and I certainly would be happy, and indeed I'll undertake to keep the House informed of any issues that may arise which might warrant an opportunity to revisit current arrangements.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you. Next matter.